schedule. I always try to fit like being a werewolf and an artist. It's a messy thing, but I make it work somehow.
You do. So you have a day job as far as like being in the medical profession. You said.
Yeah, I'm still a student. I'm finishing up my med school and I'm trying to balance like being a student and doing this full time, which it was completely unplanned.
So, I mean, congratulations on the med school thing. That's a lot going on. I feel bad when
Yeah,
I don't sketch
so
for
a
two
lot.
days. So where did your artistry start? I mean, have you always been into it, or was it something you kind of found along the way? Because being a doctor and being an artist in general has some similarities in the finesse of things, but in reality, it's just like that's two very very different professions.
Yeah, it's very opposing in a way.
Hmm.
Um, when I was a kid, I loved to draw. I drew like every day, and I would copy like tho- those old Disney coloring books, like I don't know from Bambi or uh,
Yeah,
I don't know any
101
Disney like
colors.
yeah those when the movies premiered, they would like have this sort of promotional material like coloring books and stuff, and I would get like a piece of printing paper and I would draw. I would try to replicate, and then I kind of like really fell in love with drawing and illustration. Uh, but somehow, like when I was 13 or 14, I think I kind of like completely stopped drawing. And recently, like maybe last year in April, I started drawing again, and I immediately created like an Instagram account to like see how my style changes as I drew more and as I learned more. That's how it all like kind of kicked off.
So you by using those 100, because the 101 coloring books are to some artists they're like, oh, that's for kids, but it is, if you are an illustrator or somebody that
Yeah,
focuses on an animation, it's a great useful tool that's cheap because you're learning the basics of line work, you're learning the basics of simple shapes, and your work does show that. Like when you have a piece, whether you're sketching it or whether it's being inked, everything has a crisp, clear idea of where it is and where it's at. So from those books, because like I remember in the 90s, you used to be able to get like Sleepy Hollow. You used to get like, Bambi, like you said, 50 different Halloween stories by Disney, and it would be like all these little, mock-ups
yeah,
of characters. Is that kind of what pushed you to do what you do now? Because predominantly what you do is almost like a Halloween theme with your characters. You have like a specific set of stories or something like that.
yeah. I think like with Halloween team and with Halloween characters, I'm trying to like overcompensate because we don't celebrate Halloween here. We don't have
Oh,
it.
why not?
And well, I don't know. I mean, it's not really a big thing in Europe in general.
Hmm.
It maybe like these last decade it's becoming like more and more popular, but not among children, more among adults. And we are getting into like this Halloween mood in October. But when I was a kid, I don't think I even knew what Halloween is. We didn't celebrate it, and it was like now I'm like overcompensating probably because I always wanted to celebrate Halloween, and we never like had a real proper Halloween event.
Wow. So so when you started doing your characters, did you base it off of just sketches that you liked from Halloween, or was it like a story that you kind of started progressing with, and then you have some drawings that aren't even, they're commissions basically, but do you have like a set of characters?
Yeah, I've been working on these characters like for a year,
Hmm.
like these. I don't know if you probably saw on Instagram like this Halloween themed like a town with these pumpkin people who live there and like post-apocalyptic land with pumpkins somehow evolving into humanoid creatures and humans are basically like pests and like destroyed in like this war. and I really wanted to like use those characters I used last year, if you remember.
Hmm.
I created those characters after watching Over the Garden Wall, and I was like really inspired by this amazing piece of animation. It's amazing.
Hmm.
And I really love the character designs. I love the storytelling. I love the complete vibe of the show. And I was also inspired by this artist called Naisa Gomez.
Hmm.
She's Darktown Sally. I think you probably know about her. She's amazing, and she's like the queen of Halloween illustrations. And I was like really in love with her work. So I kind of like used that as an inspiration and guide how to create these characters.
Yeah, because right now I'm looking at and my favorite one only because my girlfriend is extremely into wolves. I was looking at your current prints that you just put out for Halloween, which anyone on the live feed can see what I'm doing now. If you're not on the live feed right now for the video, pause the podcast and go to youtube.com/BrushesofDoom, and you can see it. I'll have the links to his store up there as well. And look at some of these pieces. They're phenomenal. And it's the kids that are trick-or-treating. There's a witch, there's a Dracula, and a wolf, and they look behind the wolf, and there's an actual werewolf. And
Yeah.
the kids on the couch. And it's just, from your composition all the way down to how you ink is very unique, because a very popular style of inking these days is like a Mike Mignola style, which, you know, for anyone that doesn't know, that's Hellboy. That's even in Disney, he did the main concept art for Atlantis. So it's very blocky, but you mean it's either light or day. Yours is awesome because your entire room, there's the three kids on the couch, and then there's like a ghost in the doorway with a pumpkin head, and it reminds me almost of Leica Studios. It reminds me of old Max Fleischer style cartoons, which were like the 1930s Disney cartoons, because all your lights are just like, you see luminance around your characters, but everything else that you would never assume that would be solid black, it just works so well. And it's really interesting to see, like, now that you explained that there's a town being taken over, it's cool because you start noticing that each one of these characters eventually is, I mean, they're adorable to start off with, but they are genuinely a new kind of this is the worst word in the world, but a master race to your world. Like, they are the predominant species on this planet, and you said humans are the ones that are the plague. And it's just so interesting to see how creative you can get with a jack-o'-lantern, how creative you can get with mythology, and just make it fun, you know. So when you started sketching these out, did you really focus on doing one panel stories, kind of like a Hank Catchum or a Jim Davis, which, you know, famously Dennis the Menace and Garfield, where you don't really have any words in any of them, it's just the expressions, and having those expressions tells you the story going on? Is that what you were aiming for, or did it just kind of happen naturally?
I think that kind of happened naturally. I always feel like there's a story behind every single drawing I make.
Hmm.
There's always a story behind a character, a situation, and sometimes I feel like I'm the only one who gets that story.
Hmm.
Sometimes I will write the story next to the drawing so that people maybe can understand the concept of everything. And sometimes I will just put the drawing up and, I mean, maybe keep the story just for myself.
Hmm.
I feel like, for me at least, storytelling and drawing are basically the same thing. I don't separate those two in any way possible. And I'm glad that it shows. I'm not always sure it shows.
So let's kind of go back. Like, what is art like in Bavaria? You said, correct?
Bosnia.
Bosnia. I'm sorry. In Bosnia, what is art like for your society? Because we had someone on here named Art of Matthew a while back, who was genuinely talking about why he does art, is because in the part of damn it, where is it? What?
The guy from Slovakia.
Slovakia. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I listened to his podcast like yesterday maybe.
And he was saying, so you know, like, he where he's from, art is frowned upon unless you're doing landscapes. You know what I mean? Anything outside of landscapes, it's a no-no, and that it was never encouraged to be an artist. Is it the same way where you're from, or is it a little different?
Well, I would say it's pretty much the same thing because people expect art to be something like you can see it and it's non it doesn't make you like think, or it doesn't make you, I don't know, it doesn't make you question anything. It's just a piece of pretty drawing, a piece of pretty painting you put on the wall and people see like, oh, it's nice. It's like hotel art, basically. And with this new generation of young artists, we're trying to maybe like shift the attention to something more different. And we have like this social media we can thank to, because social media kind of like breaks those geographic boundaries you have, like living in a small country. But basically, when it comes to artists here, it's not easy to sell your work unless you're doing something that's really like cookie cutter.
Do you think that that's what also pushes you as an artist to do something different? Because I know I live here in California, and in the specific area that I live in, you'll see people who have a very I don't want to say eclectic style, but they are very much the new age of art, where it's a 90-inch canvas, huge, and they have a red dot in the middle, and it's like 60 grand, and people are just like, it's ingenious. And you know, to each their own. Whoever wants to do art, more power to you. But I think that it kind of devalues and deappreciates the artists like yourself, like Matthew, like other places in the world, because I'm free to do whatever the hell I want here in California. And I think that's what makes me a lazy artist at times. You guys have to push to actually prove yourselves, not only to yourselves, but to your audience. And like you said, you have social media that pushes you out there and genuinely puts you in a position where it's like make it or break it. And I think when you start looking at people who are cookie cutter, you know, if they truly love what they do, more power to them. But like, it does make it harder for you as an artist to really create this universe and still have the same gumph, the same excitement, when it's like you worked really hard on these 8 or 9 pieces and some guy's like, check this out, I painted an apple. You know what I mean? You're like, ah, great. Could we turn that apple into a jack-o'-lantern? No. And so how do you fight that kind of block that a lot of artists get? Because it's like I said, here in California, it's easy for me to do what I want, because especially in California, anyone can be, I'm waving my hands very, you know, crazily, but anyone can be whatever they want, the whole Disney thing. But being an artist is easy for a lot of people to say, very hard for people to do. Where you're from, it's very hard to say you're an artist and actually be an artist. So does that discourage you, or how do you get past that?
Well, no, it never discouraged me because I never thought about it. I never saw myself as a like struggling artist living in a godforsaken country where no one understands me and I have to like prove myself to someone. And I never tried. I never tried to prove myself to anyone, and I never tried to like go to, I don't know, like art galleries and scream like, look at me, I'm such a great artist, nobody understands me. I mean, I wanted to have fun with my drawings, with my illustrations, and I was never actually aiming to an audience, and I was never trying to be like, oh yeah, I'm an artist, please notice me here.
So you're a lot more free to do what you want.
Yeah, because I knew like it's almost like an uphill battle to try to prove that you are an artist. Like I have to scream to some, I don't know, people who maybe don't even understand. Especially here, like people are not very, very well educated when it comes to illustration, animation. Many people don't even understand the concept of all that. When you say you're an artist, they like have this vision of you painting like I don't know, bowl of fruit.
Yeah, and that's a great way to look at it. I think that when people don't have that pressure to look at themselves and say, I want to be an artist. I want to be all these things. And there's a caveat of like an image that goes along with that. I think that that's what hurts a lot of artists because you're always trying to impress people and you never truly think for yourself. And
Exactly.
and having that freedom is a great thing. I was talking to a friend yesterday, a guy named Daniel Barberine. He is a tattoo artist and a painter. For anyone out there that was interested in looking at him as well, he and I were talking about the importance of working next to somebody. I mean, we tattoo, so we work close proximity to other artists, and he was saying, it's hard sometimes because when you have not only a client or someone collecting your art in your case staring over your shoulder, sometimes you feel this pressure to do things and you don't get to think of exactly the way you should think to figure things out. And then when you have another artist who's always over your shoulder and sharing, critique is a good thing to receive, but like if it's every day and someone's like, hey, maybe you should do this, hey, maybe you should do that, is it really yours at the end? Of course you want to
Yeah,
get improved and better, but I admire how you look at art. I admire how you achieve art because genuinely 100% of what comes out of your art is your idea and is your thing. And if somebody doesn't like it, you don't get offended because you're not trying to prove it to them. And
yeah, exactly.
and if they like it, then that's 100% gratification because you're like, well, thank you for liking what I did, but this is for me. So I think that's an extremely important thing that a lot of people have to start doing in art because
Exactly.
I feel like you value art a little bit differently than anyone that I hang around with on a day-to-day basis because you're working your ass off to become a doctor or a nurse.
Doctor.
Doctor, fuck, all right, man, kudos. A doctor, you're going above and beyond and you're still making time to burn midnight oil to do these pieces. So now let's start talking about your setup. What do you use to do your artwork? Do you use pens? Do you use ink?
Yeah, I use like regular pens, basically whatever I can find.
Mhm.
At first, I was like really limited to what I can find to my local supply shop. It was like basic, like those one-liners pens you can get for like 50 cents something. And I tried working with those, and then I uh, started like buying stuff online and finding like about different types of pens, different types of paper, different types of I don't know, like material.
Hmm.
And gradually I started like learning more about supply. Now I basically work with like those, yeah, pens. I work with like brush pens with India ink. That's probably my favorite material, like India ink.
Do you,
And I always,
oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
yeah,
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
yeah, and I always try. Love also watercolor. I
Hmm.
really love watercolors, and I'd like to work more with that medium as well. But somehow, like working with brushes is much different than working with pens and
Oh yeah.
mark. So it's kind of like I'm trying to I'm trying to combine those two, and my brain somehow it like refuses.
So what I was going to ask is that a lot of times, a lot of people have difficulty when inking with a consistent black, making it a good matte color, making a consistent black color, and making sure that it doesn't bleed. I'm looking at your Ghostwriter, excuse me, sketch of the jack o' lantern with the little skull candy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
yeah. Sorry, your candy pail, and I see like your lining looks really thin, so like a micron or like a quill pen, and then you have the open white areas. You have the black; it's super solid, as well as I can tell that everything you have is just you have a perfect balance of monochromatic black and white. Do you add in the white after with a gel pen or a specific ink, or do you leave it open? Because I've seen people who have done this kind of stuff and they try to shape out every little thing and then work around the white, but I feel
yeah.
that it constricts your actual shapes.
Sometimes I will like leave the white part. It will be like completely blank.
Hmm.
Well, that depends because I have like this jelly roll pen. I think that's the expression
Hmm.
with white ink, and I would work like mostly like 99%. I would do white stuff with that one, like stars. You see like cobwebs. It would be like in those jelly roll white pens. But sometimes if it's like a bigger surface, I would definitely like leave it blank and then like maybe I don't know do some line work shading on it. I wouldn't like go with big blank white inking stuff because I don't think it will work. Those Jelly Roll pens I use, they're great for like smaller surfaces and like lines, but if you try to like color like larger surfaces, it
They wipe
becomes like very
themselves. They wipe
messy.
themselves away.
Yeah.
You see, and that's why I'm asking because I can't find a decent pen. I've seen Terrence and Chained. He's another great artist. That he uses a Copic water pen. So it's like, the water pen brushes that you fill in the back. He uses
Yeah.
that, but he uses it with a Copic white liquid acrylic. And he puts it, just dips the tip, pushes a little water from the handle, and then he goes over his paintings because if it's not necessarily a really strong paint, it's never going to be fully there if
Yeah.
you want to do
It's
large
never,
areas. You have so much detail in these areas, whether it be like I'm looking now at the Grumpy Owl Cafe, same trick or
oh yeah.
treaters, and or the Grumpy Owl Diner, and then 10% off if you're grumpy. That's funny. And looking at that, I can definitely see what you're saying. Do you have a preferred type of black that you work with if you had to choose ink and or pen, and do you have a preferred paper that you work with, because it looks like you're working out of a moleskin book maybe?
Yeah, that was a Moleskine sketchbook one. Uh, well, I kind of like the Moleskine sketchbook for this like October challenge. I worked mostly like 99%. It was on Moleskine paper. It held like my ink. It held like really well. It didn't bleed at all. But I also use like water based paints, like water based ink, like India ink. It's great. It doesn't bleed at all. People using like alcohol based inks, like if you use Copic markers, they will definitely show, and they
Hmm.
will definitely bleed on moleskin paper. I think. Yeah, I prefer like India ink is like my definitely most favorite one. If I had to choose, I would definitely go always with India ink.
Nice. So let's talk about some of the inspirations for the characters that you've come up with. Actually, let's start a little bit back from there. Who are the characters, if they have names and so forth, so on?
Well, I always name my characters. I don't know their names right now because like I have the story behind them and like the names are always I come up with I don't know, but like maybe some of my friends. I know I named one of my character like Joshua for my friend who named Joshua. So I was like, yeah, Joshua. Okay, I guess that works. So
That's
yeah,
rad.
I don't think they have like these names in my head, but
Specifics.
they always have a story behind it.
Okay, so can you I'll pull up a few. Do you have a specific drawing that you've done that has maybe one of your main stories to it, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, I don't. I think I have one. It was the some stories I worked on before this October. It was like about this girl who like died and she woke up in this crazy like world and she didn't know what is it. And she met like this demon cat. These demon cats are like my favorite characters probably I ever created. And it's like she has to remember her name and how she died in order to like her soul to move from the purgatory she kind of like found herself in after she died.
Wow.
So yeah, I think my main character is the nameless character.
Do you ever aspire to write like put these in a book or and print them?
Yeah, I really wanted to create like this Inktober Halloween like art book maybe like a zine. I don't know of these all like these pumpkin characters and the stories behind each drawing and each of these characters. I wasn't happy with like 5 or 6 drawings I did at the end of the October because my pens started dying out, and I bought some new pens, but they didn't arrive in the mail, so I had to like work with, I don't know, like two small pens. One is 0.2 and the other 0.4.
Oh
So I
wow.
had to like make these somehow work and still incorporate those new drawings into the previous stories I wrote. And it was like crazy. So I had to like redo maybe like 5 or 6 of these Inktober drawings and to
Mhm.
put them like in a book with a background story and the characters. And I want to create like the whole complete world.
Do you feel that things like Inktober are really beneficial for artists? Because it seems that, especially in the past 4 years, Inktober has gotten extremely huge.
Yeah.
And I see a tremendous amount of people who do it and they take it as, well, most what I would say, where it's like, oh, I'll sketch something and I'm cool. And then you see people like yourself, you see people like Matthew from Art of Matthew and all these other guys where they take every single day, and it's like it would take me 2 weeks to really sit down and do what you're doing in a day, but you're creating an entire story. I'm looking at the Museum of Bizarre and Old. You have a Cthulhu
Yeah.
in the back. You have a Cerberus, a
Yeah.
T Rex, and it's such a fun piece. It's such an amazing thing.
Thank you.
Do you think that you push, like, you find your limits and what you can get better at by doing events like Inktober? Does it get you excited to work and kind of match the same effort as your peers, or is it just something that you feel like is a personal challenge or just fun in general?
Well, I think in general is like really, really beneficial to like take part in like these challenges that and like they have to push you outside of your comfort zone. You have to
Mm.
do like something different, try to do like something different and try to do like one drawing every day. I mean, I find it like extremely beneficial and it was really beneficial. This October I wanted to like explore more about storytelling and like the comic book, like the comic book create artwork, like I don't know, landscapes and scenes, scenery, different like relationship between I don't know a town and kids who are on the street. I wanted to like capture the like a scene, not just a character, like one stationary character with I don't know a balloon.
Almost like a storyboard, the way that they
Yeah,
when
it
they
should be
show it.
like a storyboard, like a complete comic book panel, maybe.
I have two books for you, if you to I can recommend to you right here.
Yeah, please.
Let's see. This one is. You probably don't need a lot of help with the second book, because you seem to be great at it already. But the three things I can recommend to you and or anyone else would be, this one is called The Master of Speed Art Painting, and it's a digital art book, but the purpose of it really is I'll show you the back of the cover, to anyone obviously that can't see. It's it shows you how they do digital worlds super fast. Ryan Madeering, who's the guy that does the Marvel, he's the creative art director for Marvel. Pretty much anything you see that's artwork based for Marvel comes from him and one other guy. But they take a lot from this book because it tells you what are the shapes that you're looking at in the foreground and in the foreground, the background, and the mid, and they tell
Yeah,
you, okay, you get to pick 5 colors. So in your case, if I were to be doing your palette as well, both you and I would have to choose 5 variations of gray, lightest to solid black, and you only get to choose 5 different subjects, and each one of them has that specific, gray or black in it, and then therefore that's how they learn to break apart. And it's full of exercises to do exactly what you're talking about with that,
yeah.
and you can get it off Amazon for like $10.
Fun fact: Amazon doesn't ship to Bosnia.
Ah, okay. Well, if anyone's near Bosnia and can help out a brother, please help him get this book because it's really good. And two is, which you seem to be very good at already, but it's a great comic book and an illustrative book. It's called Frame Perspective. They have one and two.
Yeah, I actually, yeah, I need like a lot of practice when it comes to perspective. That was like one of my major struggles this Inktober. I wanted to like try different perspectives, and I tried to like find, yeah, great, yeah, those look awesome.
As for someone else to see, that's on the live feed. But yeah, like as the great thing about these books, brother, is that like you have a good sense of perspective. I look at your stuff and it doesn't look disproportional. When you draw kids walking into the cafe versus kids, like if I were to draw them, they're like, wow, they're actually on a street and the street goes and recedes that way. There's a building in the distance that's proportional. I draw and it looks like kids going into like a really creepy raper van, and that's not good at all. But this does help you with the comic idea, and what it does is this book is also written by the guy who does inking. Inking, which if you've heard of that book, is right next to it. These guys basically tell you, all three books tell you how comic book and storyboard artists for major companies sit down and how they literally look at every single thing to do with minimum effort. How to get the most out of just black and white, how to out of one or two tones. So I would recommend those books for anyone. As a recap, the Master the Art of Speed Painting, Digital Painting Techniques, Framed Art Perspective, book 1 and 2, and the last one's just called Inking. That's it. Sorry.
Hey, thanks for the recommendations.
Of course, man. I'm a nerd for stuff like that. So back to the Inktober thing. Do you feel that having more challenges throughout the year and having seen it on a massive scale pushes you to be a better artist, or do you feel that if you were to do a localized sketch competition with a friends, so if you have 2 or 3 artist friends, do you think it's better to do it amongst yourselves to kind of push each other, or do you think it's better on a massive scale because you're trying to keep up with everybody else?
Well, I think it's individual. Maybe someone would prefer to work like with the others and to like see what others create, to like find a way for themselves to push themselves to do more. And someone will maybe benefit more from like a friendly competition with a friend who maybe has a similar style or maybe has some completely different style, and they can compare how each and every one of them works. I don't know. I think I personally find it very beneficial to work and to connect with all these other creative people who, I don't know, like created Inktober, and they really like pushed it out there. It was crazy this year. And I don't know, I feel like I have progressed maybe in like last year as well. I felt like I really improved my skills because I really drew every day and I really tried to like keep up with everybody else. And it was really fun. You get to like see when you scroll down like all 30 something drawings, you get to see how much you've improved, and you do improve. It's crazy.
Nice. Do you try to finish a entire Moleskine book before you go to any other piece, or is it, because I know for a fact, like I've seen you do commissions and I've seen you do your Moleskine stuff. Do you actually do the Moleskine and try to finish an entire story in one book, or is it that you're just kind of throwing in whatever's in your head for the day, and then maybe you'll continue on a random piece of paper?
Well, yeah, I just like improvise. I don't have like this plan in my head. I'm like very, I, I don't know, I'm all over the place when it comes to sketching and creating. I don't have like a plan, like, yeah, I'm going to do this now and next page will be this and I will have to do, after that I will do this. I don't know, I'm just like all over the place, and I never know, I personally don't know what's going to be next. So I had like I had like two moleskins like this October. I got one for myself, and I want to finish like that moleskin and just like keep it for myself. I don't want to sell those things. I don't want to sell those sketches. I want to keep it for myself. And I have the other one that was like the Inktober sketchbook, and I like tore all the pages out and I like cut them, and because I knew I'm going to sell these,
Of
so I
course.
had to like work with that. And I was like, it was like really like painful to
Yeah.
tear those pages out. Like it was so scary.
I really, I mean, I'm a huge book collector, and I would love. I'm going to keep an eye out. I would love to collect one of your books because every page is definitely worth it. Even in the sense of like I'm looking at your coffins one where it's on a TV, and you have coffin 123 sponsored by Ecto, and the background is like Mothman, is he real? Ghouls, and I
Yeah,
just it's so rad to see stuff like that. Instead of a fern, you use tentacles. Like
yeah,
that's
tentacles. Uh, every detail from that coffin illustration has a connection to previous drawings. Like the Mothman, is he real? It's like a poster
hmm
because there was like a Mothman like in the town. He was
hmm
real, and some pumpkin people saw him, some didn't, and they like speculating like is he real? So they made like a poster, and those tentacles like instead of plants, it's like a tentacles because kids from like a previous drawing, I think they found like an alien spacecraft like destroyed, and they found like a surviving alien, and they took it to like that museum of bizarre and old. Maybe you can see like that alien in the background. So
Yeah.
they found like one alien like survived, and the other one was dead. And they had like all these tentacles, and they didn't know what to do with them. And some of them like, yeah, maybe we can sell them as decoration. And some of them like ended up as a decoration.
That's really it's really ingenious because those that's what I love is Easter eggs and continuity. I feel that even for someone like myself, I don't know genuinely what I want to do. Like I envy the fact that you have a style, a story, and a point of where you're at right now. It could shift later on. It could not. Either way, or that's yours. And even when I paint or sketch, I like the idea of a continuity of relating to people around you, relating to things in your life, and relating to certain stuff. There are some people who are like, my art is so personal, I could never share it, because if I do, then it'll release the demons inside. It's like, bitch, like
Yeah,
it's
please.
not that crazy. I'm sorry. Uh, I mean that to each of their own, but I mean I don't see it that way. I like the fact that you are you're somebody that I like to hear and see as an artist that goes like, you know, this book is mine. What's in it, whether I share it or not, it is mine. I like it, but you know what? It is what it is. You
Yeah.
with the ones that you do sell, it's the idea that you want to keep going. You want to keep improvising. Now, with your medical degree happening, how do you feel that's going to affect your art? Do you think you'll keep doing it in time, or do you feel like this is something that maybe go on and off?
I don't know. I'm really not sure. I know I will try definitely to draw just as much as I draw right now.
hmm
But reality is, I think it will be it's going to be like pretty difficult once I find a job like in medical profession, and then I have to like provide the same amount of drawings as I am doing right now. I don't. Maybe I'll find a way to balance it all. I don't know. We'll see.
The the crazy thing is that I feel either way, or it's a very amazing thing for someone of your caliber in an area where, like you said, art isn't strongly encouraged the way that you prefer to do art, to have that perseverance and still go and be able to achieve getting your PhD. Like that's a lot of work. And on top of all this stuff, you like you said, you don't know where the road takes you, but you go day by day. It's really interesting to say like if your book comes or when your book comes out, if that will actually be the one and only, or it'll be one of more. And I think that makes it even more special because you value what the artist is giving you. It values what you're doing. Your characters, now that I know that there's a story to them, I want to know the story. Like I'm one of those people that
Yeah.
I have to know. But even if you stop
Oh,
there, there's such a rich thing with it.
well, yeah. I personally don't see like stopping at this point and at this rate. I really want to like see that book finished, and I really want to like hold it in my hands with all the stories and all the characters because I have like idea in my head, and I really want to come for that idea to come to life. These pumpkin kids, like definitely I see like future when it comes to this like book. I don't know what it's gonna be. Maybe it's like a combination of a comic book and an art book with a concept art, and maybe it will be like a zine. I don't know, but it will definitely be like tangible. I will definitely like hold it in my hands, and it will definitely be available for other people to also hold it.
Put me in as one of your first orders, man. I will definitely buy one because the thing
I'll
I think,
send you one, a
well,
signed copy.
oh, I know, right then and there, I'm gonna look at my girlfriend. I've made it. I know somebody. No, I genuinely love to see. One of my favorite sketchbooks and artist books of all time is the dynamic art of Alex Ross, a very prominent comic book artist. And the interesting thing is he did an entire book of all his sketches of his famous paintings, and then at the end showed a few paintings like fully conceptualized. And then he had another book that was all his paintings from the first one completely finished and a few new concept sketches at the end. And having that, whether it be your painting, your inks and your sketches, I think that shows a lot of process. And someone personally like myself, I like a story, you know, obviously the podcast stuff, but seeing process is what makes me really excited because I'm like, oh my God, I look at when you're pumpkin kids, I'm like, there's so much thought that goes into this. And then you know, if I were to sit next to you, you would draw a circle, getting ready to do your pumpkin. And I'm like, all right, he's just sketching, like it's just him actually doing it. And
Yeah.
it's
Well, yeah,
exciting.
that's like the main reason I started doing like lives and live streams
Hmm.
because I wanted like the people to see the process behind it. I wanted like for them to see what it goes from a sketch, from an idea to a sketch to like line work, then coloring. I really wanted to see. I think it gives like a new dimension to every drawing. Like when, as you said, like when you can see the process, what it takes for that piece to like exist.
Hmm. Oh, excuse me. That was like a half-ass burp.
Mhm.
Live streaming. Okay, so you do live streaming. This is, I think, something that like a lot of artists try to figure out but don't really get to. Do you feel that live streaming has really helped you as an artist towards your audience? And do you feel like it's helped you as an artist in general? Because I would do live streaming once in a while, and obviously I can talk a lot, but I can also give a lot of information. So when I live stream and I'm painting or I'm sketching, it's nice because people will genuinely ask me a question. And although I'm sketching, I can answer that question. And then all of a sudden that person's like, oh man, you know, I love you to death. I promise I'll buy every print you got. And it's like, you don't got to buy anything, man. It's nice what it
Yeah,
is.
exactly.
Other artists have heard that it puts a lot of pressure on, and they feel that they don't want them to see the raw sketch because then they're going to be thought of as less of an artist. Where I disagree. I think seeing the process encourages people.
Yeah, I also disagree. Uh, the main reason I wanted to like live stream some of my drawings is because I really wanted to like get over this mental block of me speaking publicly with other people. I really like I had like really big issues with that.
Hmm.
Mainly because I don't know, I spaz out and I start rambling. But I really wanted like to engage more with my followers. They were like really supportive with me, and I think they deserve to see who is behind this work they see every day. And it was really fun. Like I no regrets.
Some of the most interesting things you've ever heard from a live stream. Have you had any?
Uh, Let me think. I don't know. Like people will come by and say like, "Oh, can you say hi? Like, can you say hi to me?" Like, okay, like wow, what a crazy wish. Yeah.
I think it's funny because the I had this one time where a kid, I was doing a Ant-Man painting for a Marvel cover, and this guy kept going. He's all, and anyone that has like a really stupid question, and I know I'll get like an angry message from you, Christopher. I know you're listening, but a New Yorker. In my head, it's like draw Goku, draw Dragon Ball Z. How come you don't draw Dragon Ball Z? Draw Cristiano Ronaldo. I like football, but from not America. And it's like you get
So I get those like in the DMs, like
yes.
constantly, like, can you draw like, I don't know, Sailor Moon or something?
You know what? I guarantee you, if you really want to sell a book, make one of your pumpkin kids dressed up as Sailor Moon, and I swear to God, you'd have
Yeah,
so many of those little kids.
that's actually a really good idea. I love Sailor Moon, so why not?
Hey man, it's funny enough, but like somebody had made fun of me when I was a little kid about like, oh, that's a girl show, but it was what was on
So
when
that was like,
what was the guy's name with the magician's hat and the little card? Do you know what I'm talking about?
uh,
He was like the only guy.
yeah, I know. I haven't seen it like in 15 years.
Uh, but yeah, I remember seeing that at my aunt's house, and I was just like, hell yeah! Like this is if there's a bunch of girls in miniskirts, why wouldn't I want to watch it? And you get really invested into it, but it's so amazing that if you do anything with nostalgia, and this goes back to your art, I think it gives you a sense of self awareness. Because, like I said, when I look at your work, I legitimately love your style. I love the content. Now that I know there's a continuity to it in little Easter eggs, it makes me more excited to be like, oh my God, I have to keep up with this because I'm a person that loves continuity. But then, like I said, the idea of the Sailor Moon thing is I'll look at something I saw as a kid and I'll think, man, I remember being that old. And I remember seeing this, and it just brings back all these things. And you're like, you know what? I'll hold on to that. Yours does that for me when I went to a place in my hometown, which is called Bertelli's. It's tiny, tiny little mom and pop drugstore, literally what you would see back in the 50s or the 40s. And it's funny, but like every single one of your drawings, I'm like, it just reminds me of being 5 or 6 and just looking at the toys that you would buy for $1, which was like the cowboy mask and the little cap guns and the slingshots, and there would be these illustrations, and it brings me back to a time to where I want to value your art more, even if I weren't talking to you as an artist. I mean, when I was talking to someone else, I would value this art more because I'm all about Halloween. I'm all about anything creepy and spooky. But it genuinely brings me back to a time where I was like, oh shit, that used to be me. That used to like that reminds me of a different part of my life. And it's really funny that when you're trying to convey that and you see one asshole, hey, how much for you to draw me? Practice on me. Do a portrait of me. I love you
yeah,
forever.
draw me.
Can you give us some of your inspirations that you look to, or books or movies or anything that inspire you that other people listening can also look to kind of get the same inspiration?
Well, I don't know. I'm like huge like in pop culture, like modern animation, modern cartoons. They are like probably the main source of my inspiration. Like shows like Over the Garden Wall, it's like huge because, as you said, it's like a great combination of perfect like artwork combined with storytelling. That like childhood vibe
Hmm.
combined with like creepy background. Uh, Definitely like Over the Garden Wall, Gravity Falls,
Hmm.
um, Adventure Time. Like I'm redrawing one Adventure Time sketch I had in my sketchbook, and as soon as I made that sketch, I'm like, yeah, definitely this has to be like a bigger drawing one day. So I'm like working on that one now.
Nice.
What else? Rick and Morty, great show.
Yes.
I like that one.
Have you picked up the art book for Rick and Morty?
Yeah, I saw on your feed.
Yeah, it's outstanding, to be honest. It's a good, like for you, it's one of those books that some books give you a lot of raw sketches to kind of see the build up. This book has no raw material in it. It's all character study. And
Yeah,
anything about it, it makes me happy, but continue, I'm sorry.
no problem. What else? I've seen like Steven Universe recently because some people like, oh, have you seen Steven Universe? You're gonna love it. And I was like too embarrassed to say I didn't see it because it has my name written all over it. but I did see it eventually, and I didn't regret it.
Yeah, I have the art book right here. I'm not the biggest fan of the show, but I do love the art. It's a different thing for me. I think it's just something to do with the same reason why I miss old shows like Samurai Jack. You know, Samurai Jack's art
Yeah, Samurai
direction.
Jack. That's an amazing show.
Yeah, its art direction was very influential because kind of what you were saying, you know, the idea of adding layers to your artwork and making it look like foreground, background, and all this
Yeah,
stuff. They learned how to make it very easy. You know, Powerpuff Girls was done the same way, where you would have
yeah,
you'd have you'd have a city in the background that was super simple. You know,
yeah.
black
So
and then a
it's
blue
cool.
sky, and then you'd have all these characters. I mean, if you don't do a sketch of a bunch of pumpkins dressed up as like a crew of Sailor Moon meeting a crew of Powerpuff Girls, like at a Halloween party.
That can easily happen.
Oh yeah, anytime. Especially when I always miss that one episode when they had it one. They had three thugs, like three dudes dressed up as the Powerpuff Girls, and I see that as a meme now, and it's like, oh god, I'm old. But
Yeah.
so do you have any books that is like something that's a go-to for you that you try to look at?
I I like old comic books. I don't know how familiar you are with like European comic book scene,
If
but
you throw out some.
we had like these amazing comic books here from Italy and Belgium. They were really popular here.
Hmm.
Uh, and like the comic books like Bill and Dog, that was always like a huge inspiration to me. I really loved. I grew up reading almost every issue I could find because when I was a kid, like post Civil War and stuff like that, we weren't as exposed to like Western American comic book scene and American
Right.
cartoons much as we were exposed to like European artists and European style, and surprisingly, a lot of Japanese animation. Was Yeah, Japanese animation was always popular here. So when I was a kid, I never like read. I never read Marvel and DC comic books. I I then never had those, but I had like those European ones.
So that's actually a very interesting point. So, do you think, do you think that like Americans don't see a tremendous, and I'll admit I don't know the what was it, the something in dog,
Bill and Doc.
Bill and Dog. I've never heard of that before, but you mentioned Japanese anime, and it's like, oh, yeah, there we go. And it's weird because you never really think about the inspiration that comes to certain people. Like a lot of Europeans are always driven by the idea of fine art and then independent art. So you have like, you know, everybody knows Caravaggio, everybody knows Da Vinci, everybody knows Michelangelo and all those guys because it's universal. It seems like in the early 80s and 90s, the only thing that was really universal was Japanese art, anime, you know, for the comics and the cartoon scene because Hanna Barbera and Fifth Studio and all these places in America did all these cartoons. You know, everybody knows the Flintstones, but back then, you know, you didn't really get any of the newer stuff because that was just how it went. Then you look at Europe and you have all these different cartoons that are like your guys' Flintstones, your guys' staples, and you bring them to America. I'm like, I don't know who that is. But if you mention Sailor Moon once, or Powerpuff Girls, or Samurai Jack, or even all the way down to Akira and stuff, and you're just like, oh my God, I know exactly what that is. Do you feel that having that barrier from American comics, from American content, has also shifted your art? Because a lot of your art, even though it's generically universally read as like Halloween and illustrative, it is extremely different from a lot of American artists who are doing illustrative art. You know what I mean? You definitely
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
different feel. Do you think that growing up with those different influences in American has really helped you, or do you feel that it's just kind of like it's a whole new world when you discover, obviously because of social media, this whole new base of artists?
Well, I think it did have some influence, definitely. I mean, it shows, as you said. Um, I noticed also that. maybe like in Europe, like the dark humor and like maybe sarcasm and like black humor is like really popular here, much more popular than in America.
Yeah.
Like the cringe inducing, like, I always say like you can go see UK The Office and American The Office,
Two different
and that's
shows.
really like great representation of types of humor and mentality, I guess, European mentality and American mentality.
Yeah.
And I also see difference in storytelling as well. Like European storytelling and American storytelling has some difference. I think it did shape at least my storytelling mentality kind of was shaped differently because I was more exposed to European and Asian animation and European and Asian storytelling techniques, I guess.
Yeah, influences.
Yeah,
That's such a good way to look at it, because if you think about it, until now I've never really thought about, well, I mean, when we go to Europe and travel for like tattoo conventions, I love being over there because there really is no filter. Like the idea, and I'm not ever going to get political here, but I mean, like the idea of racism, sexism, and views that the way Americans classify it is completely different than how Europeans classify it. And lore itself in child stories, in everything down to like Krampus is a prime example. Krampus to Americans are like, oh my God, why would you teach that to a child?
yeah,
You're a terrible person. As to where, you know, you go to Europe and you see that that is a staple in well, a minor culture, but it's understand by people, and they're like, no, like that teaches a kid, don't be an asshole, you know.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that does change the story very much. And a lot of Americans that I know that are into the lore ideals tend to like you don't notice how much you rely on European culture, European influence, because your guys' storytelling doesn't always have a happy ending. You know, Korean
Exactly.
filmmaking is exactly that way, where it's not always a happy ending, but it's a lesson, you know, or it's
Yeah,
this or it's that. And then America, it's like, no, we need to walk off into the sunshine no matter what. So
yeah,
that's a very interesting way of looking at how you achieve your art. If you
yeah.
could,
When I was like a kid,
uh-huh.
I always remember like reading these Anderson fairy tales and Grimm Brothers fairy tales, like
Mm-hmm.
original versions, and they are like really messed up. I don't know, like Cinderella cut half of her foot,
Mm-hmm.
not Cinderella, but her like evil stepsister.
They
She
cut the
cut like
foot.
half of her foot to fit like in a glass slipper. And I like today it's like completely normal to be like freaked out about a story like that. But when we were kids, like yeah, we didn't care. It was like so cool. Like the Little Mermaid died at the end. Like great.
Well, I mean, like you're right, and I think that's why it makes for better storytelling, because there are lessons in life and in old lore that really can influence you to be more aware of your surroundings. Like in the old country, quote unquote, here, they always have somebody in American movies that's from Germany or from Poland or from somewhere, and they're like, you know, we used to say these stories, and when we tell the stories to people, then they no longer get taken by Satan. And like you come over, you know, and it's like, all right, that's cool, but you never think about that person did learn not to be a douchebag and get taken by
Yeah,
Satan. And you're right, you know, the Brothers Grimm's tales. If people knew how Pinocchio and Little Mermaid and all these stories really ended. If you've never looked up to it, anyone out there, look into them. They're very fucked up. And it's funny that Disney takes the most fucked up stories and finds a way and goes like, you know what, rape? Yeah, that's a kids movie. Let's just fix this real quick. And
like Anderson, he killed his Little Mermaid because she was like stupid in the end.
mhm.
She kind of like deserved to die because she was really stupid. Like really made some terrible life decisions.
Oh, that's fucked up. But I mean, like, could you imagine being like, here's Smash Ariel's head, mermaid Barbie? You know what I mean? Like, you could never sell that. And that is a great a way of thinking of how stories can be told. Most of the stories and most of the lore that comes out of Europe, that comes out of you know, United Kingdom and Asia, comes from a very dark place with a very clear tale. And you're right. When we were kids, you could say words, you could do things, and you could read things, and it was just like it's a lesson. It's not going to harm the child. Life isn't always sunshine and candy. And so now, you know, being able to see you and other artists who like, it's nice to now know that as well, that as you as an artist, you're taking a lot of those influences and saying, you know, it's a happy, go lucky, good looking thing, but there's not always a happy tale right there. So
Yeah, that.
that's extremely important. If you could see yourself in 5 years doing something on top of your doctor's career, what would it be, art based wise?
I don't know. I always kind of like had this fetish to creating my own cartoon series.
Hmm.
I would really like to. I don't know. It would be like a dream come true to have your own cartoon based on your characters, your story. It would be amazing. I would really love to do that. I don't see myself personally like dealing with the animation part and stuff like that. But I don't know, concept art, definitely story behind it. I would definitely love to do that. That would be great, great.
Have you ever
It could happen.
anything can happen. I mean, you have a very solid follower base on your Instagram. You have a very heavy like I've seen people that I follow that are heavy hitters that follow you and love your artwork. Like you have a very influential style and story. Have you ever thought about going to cons?
Well, yeah, I always wanted to do one of those.
Hmm.
Again, we don't have many cons here in my region,
Hmm.
but I have like a lot of friends in the States, and maybe I would do like the American tour and do many cons and stuff like that. That would be great.
I guarantee if you do that, man, you will do very, very well because I know a lot of people that I've talked to, friends wise and just client wise, that keep up with the podcast. That I was like, oh yeah, I have him on the podcast, and they just love your art, you know. And I think you would do well because it's original in its own way, and the fact that you have a story to go along with it. As a person who genuinely loves comic books and all this, you know, nerdy stuff my entire life, it is true what I heard from a another podcast I listened to. But he's a director, and he goes, you know, it's great that we finally get all this stuff, but eventually people are going to get tired of superheroes, and there's going to be a bubble. And it's the prime time now for people who are putting a genuine thought into their art, into their content, that it's going to have a bigger effect because people are going to want something different than Spider-Man or Batman or
Yeah.
Thor. And I think you have something like that. I genuinely feel that way because your characters are fun, they're cute, but they're also dark. You know, it's to me you have a modern day Adams Family vibe to it. And if anyone doesn't remember, like Adams Family before it was ever a movie or a cartoon, it was a comic book serial that they had that you would find in the Wall Street Journal, I believe it was, and you can find that book for like $6 on Amazon or on eBay, and it has all the old etchings. And back then, when they have created that, it was like yours. It's like it's dark, it's different, and people were like, nothing's ever gonna come of that, and it became one of the most iconic families in creepy, spooky history. So is there any way that anyone that's listening to you, brother, that if they want to find your art and purchase any of your prints, purchase originals or whatever you have going, where can they go to find you?
Yeah, I have like my store online. I have like Etsy store, and I mostly post like originals there and like limited edition prints I make because I don't have my own stuff to make like printers and scanners, so I have to go to this like really nice printing place and I make gallery quality prints, and they're always like signed and numbers. It's always like a limited edition.
Hmm.
So I post, yeah, I have that store, and I also post like stuff on Threadless. I have t-shirts and stuff like that.
Nice. Do you want to say any of those links, or do you want I can post them as well?
Yeah, you can post them
Okay, that's fine. As far as your Instagram page and or website, you want to just plug that?
to say like now.
Yeah, yeah, if you want. I mean, anything you want to share for people to find you, man, you're welcome to. I'm gonna post it anyway, but I'm also curious how the hell you say your Instagram name. I know it's Behemoth, the first one.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna pronounce it like we would pronounce it.
Mhm.
It's pronounced Behemoth Tvar, and it's basically when translated means like Behemoth draws stuff.
That's actually really cool. I like that.
Yeah,
Cool, man. And for anyone else out there that is interested in looking at Iggy stuff, especially when it comes to his prints, when it comes to his artwork, I do highly encourage it. If you're like a, and it is its own special thing, but if you are huge into like the Adams family, the Munsters, you know, old school Max Fleischer and Michael Eisner style animation, this is the stuff for you. His prints are extremely affordable. They go great in any setting, and more importantly, is I now you've heard where he is behind it and where he's going. This is a great artist that you want to collect from because in reality, it should be Halloween every day in your house. And if you don't get it, you're an asshole. That's right. I said it. I said it. Not him. He's a good guy. I'm not a good guy. So I'm telling you right now, if you don't get it, you're an asshole. So without further ado, man, thank you so much for being on here, Iggy.
thank you for having me. It was really fun.
Of course. And I hope to have you back again. And good luck on your doctor travels. Good luck on your art, your books, and hopefully to see many more.
Thank you.
To everyone out there, as always, you can always find more about Iggy. I'll have all his links up on the website. I will have everything from his store to his Instagram page, and you can find it at brushesofdoom.com. And to everyone that is doing the ratings and stuff on the iTunes stuff, I appreciate it. I never ask for it, but it is always appreciated. I am a man of my word. I have a free brush set from Treckle to give away. So I will do it on the next podcast, which is with Honky Konger. If anyone knows him from the tattoo industry, he is an amazing graphic guy as well. We will give away a free brush set. And one last time again, if you do not follow this man, Behemoth, you are an asshole. This guy is amazing. So we'll see you next week, and thanks all.